Hi guys, Boogs again, back with another episode of our new series, Armour Briefs. I would like to say a thank you to all those who watched the last episode and gave their thoughts and feedback, and more thanks to any new subscribers we gained. Hopefully you enjoy what I have for you today, and that is a brief on probably one of the most well-known and famous MBTs in service today. It is, of course, the mighty M1 Abrams. The structure for this video will continue with the one laid out in the last. I'll start with a little bit of the history and development, and then go on to talk about the seats in the in-game Abrams. Along with this, I will highlight the weak points and areas to shoot. This should help when discussing driver strategy and positioning. And then finally, I'll provide a conclusion and an opinion on the capabilities of the Abrams. So, onto the history. A couple of notes to start. First, we had some comments regarding the history section on the T-72B3 video. Some people felt that it wasn't thorough enough and missed important points. While we understand some people appreciate the history more than others, the main focus of these briefs is to inform viewers on the gameplay aspects of the tanks, rather than talk about the full, rich history of MBTs and their development. So, if you expect a thorough history lesson, then I'm sorry to let you down. Second note, we received a couple of comments kindly pointing out that the T-72B3 in-game is more akin to the 2011 model rather than the 2016 B3M/B4. Thank you for pointing this out. We aim to be factually correct, but sometimes things slip through the net. And that leads me on to saying that I hope I can do the Abrams justice, as it is a favourite of many. With that over, let's get started. The pre-production full-scale engineering development, or just FSED version, of the Abrams started rolling out between 1977 and 1978, with 11 being built in total. It was named the XM1 FSED, where the Russians use object for their prototypes. The typical US prototype prefix is an X. The first production version of the Abrams, the M1, began being built by Chrysler in 1979. The first 111 tanks to leave the factory were actually still called XM1 as they were built prior to being given the non-pre-production classification just M1. The M1 was equipped with a 105mm L52 rifled gun and had an ATG 1500 gas turbine engine. Couple this engine with its weight of 54 metric tons, or just 60 short tons, as the M1 could reach speeds of up to 72 kilometers an hour. In 1980, the M1 fully entered service, and by 1985, over 3,000 had been built for the United States. With some upgrades being made to the M1 with the M1IP version in 1984, that brought a 880mm frontal turret armor, the more famous M1A1 started being produced in 1985. The upgrades this version brought included a pressurized MBC system, a rear rack for improved storage of crew belongings, improved blow-off panels, and a new M256 120mm smoothbore gun. Over 5,000 M1A1s have been built for the US military. The M1A1 also saw a variety of upgrade packages, including the M1A1HC, which brought in second generation depleted uranium armor components, and the M1A1 AIM V1, which introduced a forward-looking infrared sensor, extra communications gear, and a thermal sight for the 50 caliber machine gun. The M1A1 is also famous for its involvement in Operation Desert Storm, where it proved superior to the opposing MBTs. Now, next up, one we see in game, and that is the M1A2. The baseline M1A2 is the exact version you'll encounter in game, so no upgrade packages, just the base M1A2. It began production in 1986 and was fully entered into service in 1992. The M1A2 retained the 120mm smoothbore gun as used on the M1A1, but had space for 2 more rounds of ammunition. The 1,500 horsepower ATG 1500 turbine engine was still used, however it was now produced by a different company. The M1A2 had a greater weight, which was between 64 and 67 short tons, depending on the variant or upgrade package. This meant it had a slightly lower maximum speed overall with 67 km an hour. However, in-game, we experienced the previous 72 km an hour speed that the M1A1 could achieve. Now, after yet another brief info dump, we'll get down to what we experienced when playing the M1A2 in game. As mentioned, I've taken the feedback from the previous video and added some extra information, including the weak spots on the tank. As a driver in the M1A2, you have a similar environment to the T72. However, you're gifted an extra 2 windows, left and right of the middle window, for that extra visibility. This gives the driver the ability to provide better spotting information to the gunner and commander. Also, it's much easier to move through woodland, as you can now see those pesky small trees that somehow seem to comfortably hold a 60+ ton tank. Again, as mentioned in the history, you can take the M1A2 up to 72 km on the road. The power of the engine also provides you with good acceleration both forwards and in reverse. In my own experience as a driver, I found the Abrams relatively easy to control as compared to other tanks, like the Leopard for example. Similarly to most MBTs in game, the M1A2 is a health pool of 3000 HP. Like I mentioned in the previous video, the driver is responsible for informing the gunner and commander of the state of the systems and remaining HP. Every time the tank takes a hit, it is good practice to read out any damage taken or state whether no damage was taken. My style of presenting this to the gunner is by first reading out the state of the tank, e.g. left tracked, double tracked, or engine gone, and then the HP remaining. The more you play as a driver, the more specific you can get. For example, it is sometimes hard to estimate the amount of HP remaining on the bar. I started out by only being able to accurately call damage losses to 25%. After some time, you can get this down to an accuracy of about 10%. Being able to call out losses below this, e.g. 5%, is good, but if you're in any doubt, you should always round up and report a higher loss, as getting ammo racked by a tow on 95% HP compared to 90% HP is the difference between being able to repair and fully cooking off. Let's now talk about armour. The M1A2 has some of, if not the best frontal armour in the game. The turret cheek armour is almost impenetrable. If you take a look at the image of the front of the M1A2, you can see displayed, in green, the penetrable areas. These areas are vulnerable, and so as a driver you need to remember to hide these while engaging or being engaged. The red areas are where you can penetrate and hit the ammo rack. Notice that this is on the left side of the tank when you're inside the tank, and the right side when you're looking at its front or engaging it. Again, as with the T72, hull down is your friend. Even though your turret is much larger than the T72, your armour on the turret can compensate. Next seat, the gunner. You have a rather poor choice of tools in the Abrams, with only AP, HE and coaxial machine gun to choose from. However, with this limited choice comes an increase of ammo capacity over the T72. You have 21 AP, 21 HE, 2,000 7.62mm rounds for the coax and 2 40mm smoke canisters. All this means you have a slightly reduced downtime for rearming and are able to hunt tanks till the sun goes down. The Abrams has one great stat that makes it even more formidable. That is the lightning fast 6-second reload. It also has a 360-degree turret traverse rate of 11 seconds, which makes following moving targets that little bit easier compared to the T72. However, this is still much slower than the Challenger's 7 seconds, 360-degree turret rotation speed. The Abrams also has great visibility through its main gun sights, which makes close quarters and urban fighting easier. Let's not also forget the turret stabilization. This is key for a gunner, as it makes shooting on the move much easier. Plus, it saves you having to compensate when the driver is turning. Another seat, Commander. Like the T72, the Commander has a remote-controlled gun at his disposal. A 50 caliber, that is, with 400 rounds of ammunition. Again, this is not a lot of ammo, and so if you're trigger happy, you will find yourself running out of ammo and unable to provide that close quarter support that your gunner may eventually need. Unlike the gun on the T72, however, the Commander does not have to reload. One issue with the Commander sights on the M1A2, though, is that visibility is less when compared to the T72 Commander sights. This means you're not as useful in close quarters battles. Another less useful role in the M1A2 is the loader's gunner seat, While providing an extra set of eyes, this seat is extremely vulnerable to small arms fire. However, when compared to the Leopard's open-top gunner, the M1A2 provides an extra bit of security in the form of a front shield. The loader gunner is also able to lower himself into the turret slightly by looking straight up with a gun. All this being said though, the seat is almost useless in most combat scenarios, as the person using it will find that they're going to die very often. Well, okay, so we're all up to scratch with what roles we can take while playing the Abrams. Now let's try to summarise this. I'll keep it brief in the interest of time and to avoid repeating myself. Alright, so when we can comfortably say that the Abrams is a mighty adversary. In a hull down position, it is incredibly hard to penetrate, as the turret armour is very strong, if not the strongest. However, at close range, the mantler is an easy weak spot to hit. Therefore, engagements at long ranges should be avoided when taking on the Abrams, as hitting the mantlet becomes much harder. If we take a look at the capabilities of the Abrams, then it's clearly much less capable and much less able to multitask when compared to the T-72. This is highlighted by the fact that the gunner has only 2 main ammo choices available. While this can be a negative, it also provides simplicity. An inexperienced gunner has less choices to make and so are less likely to be confused or slowed down by trying to decide what ammo choice is best. All in all, we have ourselves a very strong, simple and very mighty MBT. And with that, we're done. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe to see more of these Armour Briefs. Please do leave a comment with what you thought and let us know what tank you think should be next. That guys, cheers, out.